joins us here on Box to Row. Haines City, Florida is in the building. 7th Streeter joins us here on Box to Row. She is Tiana Major 9. She joins us here on Box to Row. Know what I mean? Sendog is the one and only. Sendog joins us here on Box to Row. Jalen Barron joins us here on Box to Row. She is Rach, joins us here on Box to Row. She is Ashley Amber, joins us here on Box to Row. He is Ron Rivera, joins us here on Box to Row. He is Jimmie Allen. He joins us here on Box to Row. She is JoJo. She joins us here on Box to Row. It's interesting because you mentioned, Biggie and the big payback, and of course the remake, at least using that beat in the 90s. You're into the 90s, like Aaliyah was one of your, Brandy, right? Brandy, by the way, doing her thing. She's on E1 as well. Can you kind of speak to that in sort of the 90s? You're really into the 90s.
It was the era that that raised me and that influenced me. The Brandys and the Aaliyahs and the 702s and the all that whole era of especially a Black female R&B. Like, I don't think nobody did it better than that era. You know what I mean? We literally stand on the shoulders of giants. Like, from the way that they their melodies and their harmonies and their their lyrical content, and just so many different things that is the foundation of and the reason why I fell in love with music in the first place.
What was your takeaway after learning, both after the film and then after learning what you learned about Salt and Pepper?
They did what they did while having life going on. They were dealing with relationship issues, personal issues. They were moms, the sacrifices that they made, to be on tour and not be with their kids. Like, they really had a whole world beyond, Salt and Pep. Cheryl and Sandy had their own worlds going on. It was like there was two of them.
Hard to do, when you go someplace new, or at least I believe it, is you want some guys that know how to do it your way. So that when the other guys sit there and they start doubting it, he can say, hey, you got to trust him, you got to believe in it. This is what it did for us. So I think when you have a voice like that, and we had several of them, when you look at our offensive line, Tyler Larson is a kid that played for me on the offensive line in Carolina, and he can talk about, having worked with Coach Matsko, our offensive line coach, working with Scott Turner, our coordinator, working with me, and then you look on defense, and we got a kid like Jared Norris who played linebacker and special teams for me, and David Mayo who played as well.
Tell us about the EP, Trying Not to Think About It.
It's about how our thoughts can sabotage relationships and make things really just hard. It's about anxiety and depression. And that sounds like a real bummer, but the album, the EP as a whole is a reflection of where I was kind of at the end of last year. So I tend to write from where I'm at. And this was me just trying to get through this time. And in opening up to my producers and stuff, I realized that a lot of people can relate to the things that I was feeling.
Idol was great. What Idol taught me, it was a big wake-up call to realize you might be the best singer in your small town, but you ain't nowhere near the best singer. So what that did for me is that fueled me to really kick up my work ethic. Because I said to myself, I might not be the best singer, might not be the best looking guy, but nobody's gonna outwork me. And that's what I learned from that. That's when I feel like my work ethic really went to a different level. You know what I mean? Because it's not about how good you are. It's about how many opportunities you create for yourself. That's when success is found. Because some people can find success through one opportunity. I realized I needed to create a plethora of opportunities, because not every opportunity pans out, and that's okay. But you learn from every opportunity too. So that's what American Idol taught me.
Yeah. So for you, your sound, it's like, R&B infused with some pop. Like it's not really defined. You have a sound that I don't think anybody else really has right now. How would you describe your sound?
I think that's like 100% true, because that's like all I've been, like that's what my life's work has like, you know, well, my youth at least, like creating my sound, creating my voice. Even when I was younger, like I have read and heard on American Idol, if you want to make it in this industry, you don't want to sound like anybody else. And so I was like, okay, how do I do that? And so I started listening to pieces of other people, you know, and really fusing it with myself. So I'm really thankful and grateful that that now is being seen and appreciated. And like, I'm kind of getting confirmation that like, yep, you're doing it right. You're good. You are your own entity. And I mean, we all are, you know what I mean? But in this music, I'm definitely really grateful and proud that people can see that.
You know, it's interesting when I talked with Anthony Anderson some years ago, you know, he mentioned just in, not necessarily the same class at Howard, but some of his classes had at the same time, Laz Alonso, P. Diddy, Shy, Ananda Lewis, Carl Anthony Payne, Wendy Raquel Robinson, Taraji P. It's crazy. And like you mentioned some, but you graduated with Steve White, a friend of this program. What do you remember most about your days at Howard?
Michelle Miller from CBS News, who's a co-anchor CBS Morning News on weekends. We were student co-anchors together on the first student-produced newscast that Howard did in 1989. And you know, Michelle's been a dear friend for years. I don't know how I left her off my list. But yeah, I mean, you know, I looked around and, you know, I saw, you know, Frederica. Frederica was a couple years ahead of me, but I saw Frederica Whitfield and I'm like, okay, she's gonna be on network news one day. I saw Michelle in the classroom with me. I'm like, she's gonna be on network news one day. There were other people who were in our classes who chose to go different routes because the skills that we got, learning to write and to speak, they're transferable and relevant across a number of different industries. So some people went to business school, some people went to law school, and now they're executives and attorneys, and they're still using the skills that they learned at the School of Communications at Howard.
This is the thing, like I've been watching wrestling a long time, and there have been black wrestlers, but not a lot of black female wrestlers. So, I mean, it's Sasha Banks, you guys are tight. There's others, obviously, but what does that mean to you to be one of the stars right now as a black woman in WWE?
The best word I could say is I just feel blessed, like super blessed. Not even just lucky, I just feel blessed to know that I'm going into WrestleMania to face Sasha Banks, who is the boss, the blueprint, the standard. She is all of those things. And I'm able to, you know, being in WWE, your dream is to make it to WrestleMania, to be in WrestleMania. And the fact that I'm going there, I'm going to be on the grandest stage of them all with Sasha Banks at Tampa Bay on April 10th. It's amazing. And knowing that, you know, WrestleMania is already it's the biggest event of the year. You know, how can you possibly make WrestleMania even bigger? It's just like, well, creating history at WrestleMania. And that's what Sasha Banks and I are going to do. We're going there to WrestleMania. We're going to create history. We're going to be the first two black females to have a title match at WrestleMania, which is amazing. And I always say representation is not a request, it's a requirement. And we're going there to try to become, I'm going there to try to become SmackDown Women's Champion. But it's more than just creating a moment and becoming a champion. Just by us standing in the ring, we are representation for women, we're representation for black women. And so that's an amazing feeling to be able to be that person and be on that platform on the grandest stage of them all and be able to create history. It's an honor.
The thing, like you know, gospel, R&B, jazz, standards, pop, like you covered the entire gamut. And not a lot of people can do that. So can you speak to that, just the longevity, but being able to be versatile in the music business?
I used to joke with the kids, well, you know, you sing this and you sing that and you sing this, and I let them know it's nothing but the same 8 notes in that scale. We all sing the same 8 notes. So there's no difference in any kind of music. It's just music.
Let's talk about my favorite Christmas melody. You play the role of Abby. Speak to this. Yeah. So tell us, how did this come about? I mean, you're no stranger to acting, right? But how did this, how did this role come about for you?
Well, this role came about for me through management, of course, and my agent. And I took a look at the script. I related to the script, of course. The role is of Abby Walker, who is a struggling musician. She's kind of lost her sauce and her spark because of a devastation that she's experienced with a song of hers that she wrote. She's a songwriter, by the way, composed, being stolen. And hey, millions are being made by somebody else. So that's very, very relatable, being in the music industry for almost 25 years. Things like that happen all the time. But there's something special about this film because, hey, it takes place during the holidays, but we often seek elsewhere to try to find a slice of happiness, when all the while, sometimes you just have to go back home to find that, your roots, your stomping grounds, your essence, and that spark. And that's what you see her journey convey.
Speak about your career. Like you started out young, right? I mean, you're still young. I mean, don't get me wrong, but you started out as a child, if you will.
Right.
And the roles have, even though, you may not have gotten some roles, but to your point, what's for you is for you. This
Right.
role obviously is for you. Free Reign was for you. Other roles have been for you. Just talk about how your career is blossoming. It's growing.
Yeah, I mean, like when I say divine timing is everything, please have no doubt in God's plan for you, for your individual self, nobody else's, because I am so grateful to have been able, I started literally from nothing, right? From no agent, nobody in my family was in the industry, nothing like that. Booking my first job of, I believe it was a Bratz commercial. It was a Bratz commercial that I had booked. That was my first job ever. And then I graduated on then to having, co-star roles. And then I went to, Disney Channel. And then I got recurring roles on Disney Channel. And then I was able to graduate from there onto Showtime Shameless, right? And then from there, I took a step to Free Reign. And then from Free Reign, here I am on Blind Spotting. And I am so happy for the things that did not work out for me, because it turns out it all works out for you. No matter what, it all works out for you in your favor as long as you believe it and you speak life into it and you move accordingly in your day-to-day life. Then you have no way but to go up and progress.